We're having a purge here in Esther chapter 9. I've never politically purged anybody at all. I don't think I'd probably have the stomach for it. But in Queen Esther's estimation, the only way to finish this thing off the right way and ensure that her people don't get slaughtered and to win, truly win, this court intrigue battle that she is having with her political rivals, most notably Haman, but a whole bunch of surrogates for Haman as well. The only way she's really going to win this thing, in her estimation, is to make sure that everybody who is involved in Haman's plot, not just him, not just his family, but everybody is removed from the political equation, because my guess is she's running the math on this. I'm like, well, this sort of became a zero-sum game. I didn't make it a zero-sum game. Haman did. I was just sitting there minding my own business, being queen. I wasn't doing nothing to nobody other than King Xerxes, if you know what I'm saying. And then all of a sudden, here comes Haman, and he's like, we're going to kill all the Jews. Well, now, I took that personally, and I felt I needed to do something about that. Not initially, but after a little bit of prodding, I felt like I needed to do something about that. So I pushed all my chips to the middle. My ethnicity, my political stance on this, my willingness to die to try to see this thing fixed. Remember, she put her own neck on the line for this. And now we've had one day of fighting. The Jews have repulsed their enemies in Esther chapter 9, and they've won a bunch of victories in the citadel of Susa as well, where all of the nobles and the people who make the decisions and influence the king, they're all hanging around there. It must have been a crazy day, this 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar, in the citadel of Susa, a citadel which had been bewildered by all of these events for several chapters, several months now. Surely there was grief and mourning and confusion and maybe a hope that that would be the end of things. But it also looks like Esther sizes it up and is like, it's not done. This is going to continue to bleed, and there is a reasonable possibility that the supporters of Haman will view Haman as some sort of martyr now and will carry out his cause, will pick up his cause. And maybe she thinks to herself, my husband is incredibly weak and manipulatable. If he's hard enough into drink, or I can't get into the room to affect things, he could sign another stupid edict. This could all still happen. And so she chooses what I am calling political purge. Now, that political purge is something that she just simply wants to see happen for a second day. In her estimation, probably Mordecai's estimation as well, a second day would allow them to catch, to capture, and to defeat all of the remaining enemies with whom, in her estimation, peace would not be an option. I'm fascinated by this little vignette of the king and the queen in the citadel of Susa. And I picture Xerxes being, I read the text, I read the lines that are attributed to him. I picture him being musing and overwhelmed. And maybe there's some moment here where he starts to realize that his approach as a clown king to governing is an approach that actually breeds more violence. Remember, I've said this like 3 or 4 times. None of this stuff had to happen. This is all squarely at Xerxes' feet for not punishing and telling off his idiot right-hand man for even daring to propose killing all of the Jews. Xerxes should have said to Haman, when Haman threw out the idea of killing an entire people group, he should have been like, who do you think I am? What kind of king do you believe that I am? Excuse me, sir. You misunderstand me deeply if you thought there was any chance that I would blindly sign off on you killing one of my beloved people groups, an entire group of the citizens of my great empire, without me even asking the name of who this people group is. Guards, put him in stocks until his wits are back about him. But he doesn't do that. He's just like, okay, I don't even need your money. Whatever, do whatever you want. Let's just have a drink. And now maybe here in Esther chapter 9, that has come home to roost. Maybe the king is regretting his clown kingery. As he says, the Jews have killed and destroyed 500 men and the 10 sons of Haman in the citadel of Susa. to me, it sounds like when he says this to Queen Esther, surveying the damage that he has wrought, that he's realizing what a huge chunk of the political crowd, the political class in Susa is gone. Now, let's think about this from his perspective a little bit more. He knows all these people. These are the people who come to his weird drunken banquets where he tries to get his queens to do sexy dances, or at least did that once. These are the people who he leans on to make decisions. These are the people who he probably knows some of their kids. He's probably eyeballing them for future roles. And it's a promising young man. Maybe when he grows up, he could be the satrap of Bactria. I mean, he knows these people. He probably sent them gifts when their kids were born. And now he's over a barrel, and his wife and his new right-hand man, Mordecai, they're leading the charge on all of this. And again, Xerxes isn't in a place to undo his own command. So he's having to sit on his balcony and not return texts or phone calls from his buddies like, hey, Xerxes, it's Kyle. We've been pretty good friends for a long time. There are people outside. They have swords. It looks like they want to kill us. Could you pick up? Because I would, if there's anything you could do to have them not, that would be super. Xerxes is just up there ghosting everybody for the whole day, watching this go down, feeling weak and conflicted. And already once we've seen Xerxes go to Esther and Mordecai and be like, well, I already gave you a bunch of stuff, remember? I mean, in the first part of Esther 8, it looks like the king is pretty satisfied that he's done enough to square accounts, and then realizes that in Esther and Mordecai's estimation, he has not done enough. Looks like that same impulse is on display here. Have I done enough? Is this resolved? What have I made? Kind of like the moment at the end of True Grit when the main character has to ride on horseback through all of the carnage she created with her character and her decision-making. It's that moment, I think. And then he muses, what have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? He's looking at the carnage in Susa, probably flumes of smoke coming up from the households of places where he's celebrated big life events with people who wanted to annihilate all the Jews, but who were still a member of his court. And he kind of likes them, but he also likes his wife. And he's probably sitting here feeling like this whole situation is sort of a metaphor for his entire failed reign. What would my dad have done? Because this kind of stuff didn't happen when he was in charge. I mean, it happened in other cities, but not here. Not in blessed, beautiful, approved by Ahura Mazda, the great god citadel of Susa. What would Cyrus have done? This kind of stuff didn't happen to Cyrus the Great. I'm an idiot. People know I'm an idiot. Dang it. If it looks this bad here, where it's the seat of my power, the metaphor for my authority, how awful must this look everywhere else? But he's painted himself into a corner. There's nothing he can do with it. So almost limply, I imagine him in defeat, turning back to his queen, who's maybe over there with the pointer finger and the middle finger, pointing at his eyes and then her eyes, metaphorically saying, look at me, I'm the captain now. He looks over at his queen, who has become very formidable, and he knows it's all up to her now. He says, oh, what's your petition? It'll be given to you. What's your request? It'll also be granted. And her reply is, we need to press the gas pedal. I want one more day of this. The political purging is not done, and it needs to be done. What does Xerxes think in that moment? He has to grant her the request for all the reasons I just listed out, socially and politically, legally. He's painted into a corner. It's a mess of his own making. But now he has to endure another day on his balcony, watching more flumes of smoke rise up, watching more people end up on gallows that Haman made, or gallows like the ones Haman made. His capital is in chaos. Metaphorical Rome is burning, and all he's able to do is stand up there and fiddle. And I think when we consider the whole situation from the perspective of a Xerxes who looks very broken in this moment to me, maybe you characterize it differently. If so, I'd love to hear about that. I'd love to hear your read on where he's at mentally in this place. But this is how I read it. So this broken king really has ceded all control of the situation to Esther. And I think that puts even more burden on her in terms of how we view her character and what we do with this exact moment. I think the author of Esther is trying to make it clear, no, this was Esther, and that was a good thing. No, don't be mistaken. This wasn't the king shrewdly coming to his senses and seeing the situation and having an awakening. Oh, no. This was very costly for the king. This was humbling, humiliating. It was out of his control. And the author of the book of Esther seems to want us to appreciate and respect the shrewdness, boldness, and willingness to strike at the right moment that Esther is demonstrating here. Tomorrow, the king's going to issue another edict, and we'll see how that edict plays out and how this proposed purge goes. And maybe we'll look forward a little bit to consider whether or not it worked. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we've thought about the moral and ethical side of the whole thing, but how about we just consider the pragmatic side? Is Esther going to get what she wants from this solution, from this response to the enemies who tried to kill her and her people? Difficult stuff, but important stuff. And again, I think one of the beauties and difficulties of the format we have agreed to is that you and I get whatever is next in the text, which means we get the full range of emotions and experience and material to reflect on that comes with reading straight through books of the Bible carefully. All right, we'll just keep chewing on it. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour Podcast. Do this again soon.